The ANC has just launched its policy discussion documents. It will form part of the base for its 5th National Policy Conference in June this year. The parties made some far-ranging proposals. For some reaction on the media briefing that's just been held, we'll cross now to Latuli House, where our politics team of Xoli Ngambi and Thulasizwe Simelane is standing by.
Well, thank you very much, Marcel. And as you've rightly introduced this particular section, of course, saying that a myriad of policy proposals have come out here, and it's important to emphasize, Marcel, that indeed you're quite correct. It is policy proposals at this moment. These are issues that will be taken to the ANC's policy conference, where they will be discussed further, perhaps have new additions in policy, if any, of course, come up. But importantly, Marcel, let's just delve into some of the issues that were discussed here. Importantly, the issue around organizational renewal. This morning, you will know that we are running with the story that the Nelson Mandela Bay has a new leader in the form of Andile Lungisa, a very, very controversial character there indeed. But I'm not alone, Marcel. Let me introduce my colleague Thulasizwe Simelane to just flesh out some of the issues that perhaps were salient coming out of this press conference. Thulas, thanks very much for being here. Importantly, the issue around Andile Lungisa. We asked as much as we could around that. Did we get any far in as far as responses are concerned?
Not at all, Xoli. I mean, you could tell that the plan was very clear from the communications team led by Zizigodwa that they will not respond to that issue directly. And how can they until it's dealt with? Because it goes against the constitution of the ANC to say, you know, those serving in higher structures are not supposed to contest for positions in lower structures. Andile Lungisa is a provincial executive committee member. Now he's contested and won as the regional chair in Nelson Mandela Bay. And that's not even talking about some of the controversies around the man himself. So it's an issue that the Secretary General, we are told, is actually dealing with. How he comes out of this one is going to be interesting. And also it talks to that issue, Xoli, of, you know, the ANC has been assessing itself, assessing issues of discipline, how to enforce discipline, and also this character of the ANC and organizational culture over the past few conferences. How can they entrench what they are talking about when, you know, a situation as simple as telling Andile Lungisa that you can't contest for that lower position, and yet he at some point actually indicated that he wasn't going to contest, yet he went ahead and has now been elected. It really puts them in that conundrum.
Exactly, to us, because also embedded in that is this whole issue about the ANC saying it wants to strengthen its hegemony in society, and it's very aware that in terms of moral character, it is not doing as well as it should. And so the important thing is to reassure the South African public that they change the attitude and the way they do things, and it starts with putting in positions of leadership people who can be trusted by the community. So we're not sure how they're going to fare as far as that's concerned. Let's stick with organizational renewal for a while, Thulas, and talk about this revolutionary electoral college. In the document it said it's a revolutionary electoral commission, but Fikile Mbalula, who chairs the organizational renewal, keeps talking about the revolutionary electoral college. What does that envisage? What did he say about what this committee is, its task is going to be?
So clearly the ANC, you know that the ANC has a lot of problems every time they go to an elective conference, be it at branch level, at regional level, provincial level, and at national level. And I guess the best example right now would be the KZN elective conference, which was more than a year ago now, but guess what? It's still in court because there are complaints about how exactly the process was run, you know, the credentials, how those were handled, how people ended up at the conference itself. So the ANC has been sort of playing around with various ideas of how to elect leaders. Do we allow the opening up of this discussion on leadership and let people campaign openly and get elected? Do we have an electoral college? And in fact, Gwede Mantashe was even making examples of systems whereby a leader is elected and he chooses the people that he wants to work with, and the rest of the membership allows for that to happen. So it seems they want an electoral college, according to this proposal. An electoral college, people would still nominate in the branches, but those would then be processed by what Mbalula calls a revolutionary electoral college. And they would then, because he says the danger is you end up electing people you don't know, whose character you don't know, and the election is based on which faction is dominant. So this would allow for the electoral college to sit and assess whether a person is actually suitable. Do they meet the guidelines of the ANC? But in the end, the decision to then elect, I suppose they would then be whittled down and then sent back to the branches for the final election.
Very interesting indeed, Tulas, and perhaps one point before we move on from this electoral college issue is Mbalula saying that this is going to be a team of people that are not interested in any positions within the ANC. So these are people perhaps that will not have any ambitions to try and rise up the ranks of the ANC. It sounds to me more like a structure that already exists within the ANC, the Integrity Commission, but that particular structure was very criticized by the Secretary General Gwede Mantashe late last year when he spoke about how toothless it was. So let's see, we await with interest how this electoral college is going to work and perhaps whether it will resemble anything that looks like the Integrity Commission. Let's move on, Tulas, and talk about the structure or the committee called Legislature and Governance. There is talk about strengthening the presidency. What exactly came out of that?
Well, there was a very interesting one because, we wanted to understand what exactly do they mean when they talk about strengthening the presidency as a strategic center of power in the state. The explanation is that they are talking specifically to the issue of the National Development Plan and driving the implementation of the NDP, but also letting the presidency play a central role in the allocation of the state's resources. When we then ask them what does that mean in terms of how much emphasis are you placing then on the quality of the person that the ANC deploys to the presidency, given that you see this person as a strategic center of power in the state. The answer there was from Jeff Khatebe to say, well, we are saying that all our cadres should be deployed on the basis of merit, be it in the presidency, in cabinet, or here at Lutuli House. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion there. And
very quickly, Tulas, we are out of time. The issue of land would certainly have come up. I heard the Minister Naledi Pandor, who chairs the Health and Education Subcommittee, trying to address this issue and saying that the issue of amending Section 25 of the Constitution cannot be looked at separately. What exactly were her thoughts on that issue?
I suspect actually analysts will be very busy analyzing how these documents are phrased in as far as that issue is concerned, because recently, if there's one issue that has showcased the kind of pulling in different directions that is happening in the ANC, it's been that issue. You've had people like President Jacob Zuma who have talked about expropriation of land without compensation being the way to go to sort of accelerate land reform in line with this call for radical economic transformation. But it seems from these documents, the proposal, at least at this stage, is for the ANC to do what it needs to do within the current framework of Section 25, which allows for expropriation with just and equitable compensation, and therefore the comments of people like Naledi Pandor come in that respect. It seems the ANC has no appetite to ditch land expropriation where it's needed with compensation, just and equitable compensation, and therefore they are talking about codifying what Section 25 allows for. So the expropriation bill to be revised and then tabled again to make sure that they do what they need to do within this particular framework. So it seems, unless of course the delegates at the policy conference see it differently and overturn this, it seems in the foreseeable future there's no possibility of expropriation without compensation as the president would have it.
Well, very interesting times indeed, and as we look forward to that much awaited policy conference that takes place in June, to be exact, the dates are the 30th to the 5th of July, Marcel. That is when this policy conference of the ANC will take place, and important to remind viewers, Marcel, that the chair of, or the head of ANC policy, Jeff Khatebe, emphasizing here that the discussions that will be held at the policy conference of the ANC will be confirmed at the elective conference, and it's not the policy conference that's going to ratify all those discussions. So they will be finalized at the elective conference of the ANC that takes place in December. A very, very voluminous document, Marcel, I must tell you, very, very many different topics to explore that we have not touched on. The ANC has now made public these discussion documents. This is, I think, also to encourage the public to try and engage with that document. Let's leave it there for the moment.